Check 1 2, check 1 2. Y'all hear me? Hey y'all, how y'all doing? We got Earth Angel in the house. Earth Angel, Earth Angel, will you be mine? Don't get me started, Earth Angel. My darling dear, love you all the time. I'm just a fool in love with you. That's my shit. Get me started, Earl. Hey, Patricia, how you doing? Hey, Indigo. We got the first diggable planet up in here. We got Indigo in the house. Hey, Caleb. Hey, Annie. We got Benito. Yes. Know what song I was thinking about just before I went live? She wakes up early every morning just to do her hair now, 'cause she cares, y'all. Her hair wouldn't be right without her makeup. She's not without a makeup. She's just like you and me, but she's homeless. She's homeless. See, Pisces season got me thinking about this song. As she stands there singing for my name, sing with me, y'all. La da dee, la da da, la da dee, la da da. Yes, Pisces season make me think of She's Homeless, Gypsy Woman, Crystal Waters. Those were the days, y'all, wasn't it? La da dee, la da da. We got some more diggable planets up in the house. We got Siobhan, we got Cameron, Golden Owl. Glad y'all are making it in on time. La da dee, la da da, la da dee, la da da. Oh, let's see. I Love Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. So there you go again. You say you want your freedom, but who am I to take you down? That's my shit. All thunder only happens when it's raining. Players only love you when they're playing. That is my shit. Y'all get me started. It is Pisces season, so you know a lot of us really feeling the music right about now. Yeah. See, women, they will come and they will go. Happy birthday, Pisces Moon. Your birthday is this Friday. Happy birthday to all the Pisces out there. Pisces is one of my favorite signs. One of my daughters is a Pisces. It's her birthday today. She turned 22. So we'll be going out to dinner. So looking forward to that, which is why I can't be on too long because I got to get ready and all that type of stuff. But yeah, all my children are grown. It's an amazing thing when you basically have grown children. You do feel that sense of accomplishment, but I will say you still worry about your adult children. You might even worry about them even more as adults than when they're children, because you know when they're children they're still under your control to a certain extent. But thankfully all three of my children pretty much, you know, got their heads screwed on right. I'll say that. And I'm just proud of all of them. I'm really proud of my Pisces daughter, 22-year-old. She's just like I told her in a birthday card. I was like, "You're the shit." I was like, "You're the shit." Like she is. She's talented, intelligent. Of course, with a Pisces, she got that artistic flair, that artistic expression. Of course, she loves animals to death. Especially cats, though. Sweet as ever, compassionate, selfless, all those beautiful Pisces traits, she got them. And she don't have a lot of the negative Pisces traits, like being a liar, being a thief, wanting to shift blame, wanting to always have that sob story to garner sympathy from people, playing a victim role all the time, acting like you don't want to work, want to just smoke weed, sleep all day. She don't have none of those dark side of Pisces. She does like a little bit of her drink though. And I tried to tell her when she was a teen, I was like, yeah, I was like, I see you ain't really, you know, on that alcohol and stuff, but I was like, watch, wait. And once she turned 21, it really like she really started experimenting with like different drinks and stuff. So she does like her drink every now and then. I'm like, yeah, that's so Pisces. I don't really drink like that. I just never, me and alcohol never really got down like that, mainly because of the taste. I can't stand the taste. And I don't like being too tipsy. Being a little tipsy is fun though. And that's one of the blessings of Pisces. You know, Pisces rules intoxicants. And sometimes you need a little intoxicant to, you know, either take the edge off or to jazz things up, make things a little more interesting. Pisces is also that sedative. It'll put you to sleep. Yes. Hey, Delisha. We got Willow Green in here. We got some diggable planets up in the house. That's what I'm talking about. Angela is up in here. But yeah. So we're going to get straight into this book. Now, let me share my screen and just pull up Will Smith's chart. And one thing I was thinking about, damn, I don't even see his chart. Hold on. One thing I was thinking about with one of his aspects, and it explains a lot with his book. Felicia said, you say I need sweet drink. Well, I'll tell you the drink that I really like. Actually, there's two different drinks. I love amaretto sours. I could definitely get down with them because you can't even really taste the alcohol. And I like Midori sours because you can't really taste the alcohol. So you're right. I like the sweet stuff. I probably would like a strawberry daiquiri, but I don't think I ever tried one. I've had like margaritas before. I'm not too big on margaritas because I could still taste that tequila like pretty strong. Now, I have to admit, y'all, I did take a peek at chapter 5 and I wasn't impressed. That's why I was like, I'm going to have to do this live to just keep me interested because I have to just be real. Like chapter 5 don't seem too interesting. He's not really spilling much of his own tea. It's basically still dealing with the early part of his life, but at least we're starting to move forward with him becoming a rapper. But I don't know. I wasn't feeling chapter 5, the little bit that I did read. So I'm going to need y'all to motivate me to keep going today. And I figured it out with Will Smith, with what's wrong with some of these chapters. Because remember, chapter 4 wasn't too great either. And what made it interesting was the chat. So y'all chatting and putting your input in there. That's what made chapter 4 interesting. So I'm like, I'm going to need y'all help with chapter 5 too. But I figured it out with how that's represented in his chart. So you see how he got Mars in the 4th in Virgo? And then it's squaring his Gemini ascendant. That's him being too detailed. That's him like adding these personal details about his life that we don't need to even know about. That's like really not that interesting. But I also feel that because he has, what is that? Mars quincunx Chiron. I see that as this is his way of trying to deflect from some of the real aspects about his teenagehood. I don't believe he's being totally open and honest about his teenage years, especially on the sexual thing. And we were making jokes about what was it? A cousin of his? What was the cousin's name? I forget the cousin's name. I should have my glasses on. I have to put my glasses on to see the. Oh, you've been watching a remake of Bel Air, Contemplating Key? I don't know if I even want to see that. I don't like remake. Paul. Yeah, it was cousin Paul. Thank you, Cameron. So I'm wondering about that Paul. And makes me really wonder. Oh, and that's what I was wondering too. Remember he had wrote about him getting caught with his girlfriend in the kitchen. I was like, what if there was no such thing as that girlfriend? I forget her name. But what if it was him and Paul in the kitchen instead? Because he sure didn't go into detail. And this is the thing about that Mars square ascendant. He's picking and choosing what to be very detailed about. You see what I mean? Like he didn't go into really much detail about getting caught in the kitchen with his girlfriend, even though that would be a story that, yeah, you should go more into detail with that. You basically said your mom was like, well, and then nothing else ever came of it, but the girl had to move out. Come on now. But then you'll be extra detailed about shit that don't even matter, really. So I'm like, what are you trying to hide? And with that Mars quincunx Chiron and Aries, that can deal with he's not being upfront about certain details about who he is, and that could even include his sexuality or his sexual experiences, because that Chiron being an Aries, and just Mars too. So we also have to look at that Mars. We have to remember that this Mars is representing Will Smith's sexuality and how he likes to get down sexually. So we have to take certain aspects into account, and we have to read between the lines with some of these stories that he's telling. So I just wanted to put that out there. And with that being said, I guess we got enough people for me to start reading. But like I said, I'm gonna need y'all help getting through this, because when I was starting to read it, because I was going to hey Red Bunny, we got another diggable planet in the house. I was going to read this, record it, and then do a premiere like last time, like chapter 4. But then it was so hard for me to get through. I was just like, let me just go live with this. So y'all ready? Patricia said we need to come out and join our community. Yeah. Siobhan said he wrote this as a form of beating his meat. I definitely, he's stroking his ego and beating his meat, which is basically one and the same. All right, y'all ready? Okay. So chapter 5 is called Hope. My mom and Harry moved back into Woodcrest. My family wasn't one that talked about things. I was never privy to what she and Daddy-O had decided. I didn't ask. They didn't tell. But whatever it was, he never put his hands on her again. It was midday through my senior year. I had just gotten my SAT scores, low 1200s. This was far from a perfect score, but for a Black kid from an inner city school in Philadelphia, those numbers were more than good enough to get me really good options for college. My mom was ecstatic. She was dancing around the house, calling all her friends at Carnegie Mellon and MIT. You would have thought she was going back to college. My strong subjects were math and science. By 1986, more and more schools were beginning to offer computer science and engineering courses. My mom set up a war room. She had a map of the United States. She was cross-referencing engineering schools with cities and states where we have family members, cost of living with distance from Philadelphia. With that information at hand, she narrowed down my options to her top 5 or 6 schools, organized in order of most likely to least likely acceptance. She then filled out all the applications, handled all of the housing logistics, and weighed all the travel and financial issues. At the time, she worked for the school board of Philadelphia. So when it came to education, her organization and execution made even Daddy-O applaud. We had family friends in Wisconsin, and suddenly my mom decided we were going to take a quick family trip to see them. Now, the fact that his mom worked on the school board of Philadelphia, that could be seen with that Aquarius midheaven, because that 10th house midheaven, that's representing his mother. Aquarius rules boards. So then we have to look at Uranus. So Uranus is in Virgo, it's conjoined to the sun in Libra, so that could deal with decision making with the board, and maybe she was one of the ones taking, records or whatever like that. But let me see if there's a connection. He has Uranus. I don't see a connection with. I don't see a connection. That's too wide of a. Actually, yeah, that's a bit too wide of a trine between that Uranus and ascendant. But she does have Uranus. He has Uranus conjoined to the sun, but that's mainly pointing to the mom dealing with the father and that whole marriage and stuff. But that Uranus conjoined to Pluto, that does represent the abuse that she was dealing with at the hands of the father. All right, moving along. So it said, we have family friends in Wisconsin, and suddenly my mom decided we were going to take a quick family trip to see them. The patriarch, Walter McCallum, we call him Uncle Whatchamacallit, was tight with the admissions officer at the University College of Engineering. She had already gotten my sister Pam into Hampton University, and I was up next. Her wildest dreams as a parent were coming true. All of her kids were going to college. My mom was the commander in charge of the will getting into college mission. Now that is very much Uranus conjoined to Pluto when you take that midheaven, Aquarius on the midheaven into account. Her being very detailed, being on it with trying to get him into college. Her being just extra with it, having the map out and all this stuff, basically taking control of the whole situation. So my mom was the commander in charge of the will getting into college mission. All of a sudden, she was very comfortable with the idea that if two people are in charge, everybody dies. So remember, that was his father saying, if two people are in charge, everybody dies. If it was a Friday night, here's that girl. It was a Friday night, and my girl Judy Stewart was having her birthday party up the block. I met up with Ready Rock after school. Yo, you going to Judy's party tonight? He said. Nah, man, she played me. I DJ her party for the last 2 years, and she got somebody else and didn't even tell me. Well, she didn't just get somebody else, man. She got Jazzy Jeff. Word? I've been hearing about him, but I never saw him cut. Yeah, man, he's ill, Reddy said. He's from Southwest, though, and he's going to be in our hood. We going to stand for that? Reddy Rock always knew how to gas me up for a battle. Not that I needed much fuel. Yo, what's his rapper's name? I said. MC Ice. He can't touch you, though. Nobody can touch me. Reddy Rock love when I talk dirty like that. Huh? See what I mean? You got to read between the lines. You got to read between the lines when it comes to Will Smith's book. And again, that's dealing with that Mars and Virgo square that Gemini is sending. It's like he giving you little details and he being slick with what he's saying, his choice of words. You know what? We're going to hit that party tonight and smash these fools. I said, we got to rep Winfield. Bet, he said. Reddy Rock C and the Fresh Prince versus Jazzy Jeff and MC Ice. I'll meet you there at 8. I bet. Later. Jeffrey Allen Towns grew up on Rodman Street in Southwest Philly, about 4 or 5 miles from Winfield. Jeff came from a musical family. His father used to MC for the jazz legend Count Basie. His older brothers played in funk. You see how these celebrities always got connections? Always. I don't think you can be successful in the music industry and Hollywood, nothing, unless you already got some connections. It always just seems that way. So his father was the MC for jazz legend Count Basie. That's huge. Now, his older brothers played in funk and fusion bands, and his sisters were always singing Motown tunes. He was the baby of the family and was a musical sponge, absorbing and processing all the incredible talent that was happening around him. At the age of 15, Jeff was diagnosed with cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. After various painful and difficult treatments, he managed to beat the illness. But his mother became understandably overprotective, and Jeff found himself spending his days in the family basement, surrounded by 10,000 of his father and brothers' jazz, funk, and blues records. Jeff would spend all day digging through them, listening to everything from John Coltrane and Charles Mingus to Stevie Wonder and James Brown, noting the different styles, the musicianship, the instrumentation. When he was 10, Jeff had begun DJing. His encyclopedic knowledge made him a musical marvel. Everyone called him Jazz because of his ability to seamlessly blend complex jazz tunes with modern funk, disco, or hip-hop rhythms. Eventually, that got extended to Jazzy Jeff. A lot of you young guns might not know this, but back in the day, DJs were actually more famous than MCs. Rapping was still pretty rudimentary. We hadn't developed the rhythmic or linguistic ingenuity that we have today. Instead, DJing was the innovative and exciting center of attention. It's hard to explain to people who aren't familiar with old school cutting, but Jeff's ability to scratch out rhythms and blend sounds was and still is, for the most part, unparalleled. He pioneered techniques and styles in those Philly basement parties as a teenager that are still used by thousands of DJs all over the world today. He could manipulate records in ways that no one has seen or heard before. He could bend keys and time signatures and alter sounds, one of which I later named the Transformer Scratch because it reminded me of the sound effect from the Transformers cartoon. He could make the vocal lines of two records talk back and forth to each other, creating conversations from two completely different songs. I could go on, but I'll stop and just say there's a reason why many, including myself, consider Jeff to be the GOAT of hip hop DJing. Even today, over 30 years later, he's revered by DJing experts as one of the best in the world. The point is, I know I am the big famous movie guy, but back in the 80s, Jazzy Jeff was the star. It was me backing him up. That night at Judy's, I showed up early. I made my entrance into her basement. Two-tone Lee jeans, black on the back, white on the front, with fresh prints down the left leg in red letters, and a matching two-tone Lee jacket. I had taken the Lee patch off the waistband of the pants and had attached it to the silver rope chain around my neck. I was almost too fly for this party. As I stepped into the room, my mind flashed to the last time I had been in Judy's basement. The harrowing events documented in my first single, Girls Ain't Nothing But Trouble, actually happened right here. I was with one of Judy's girlfriends in that basement one night when Judy's father woke up around 2 a.m. to the unmistakable sounds of exquisite lovemaking. My sounds, not hers. From the top floor, I heard him bellowing and tearing down the stairs. Who the fuck is in my house? I bolted up and scrambled naked through the narrow back hall, snatching open the door to the rear driveway, which, to my horror, had since disappeared under 12 inches of snow. It was 31 degrees and I had a choice to make. Where is he? Where is he? Judy's father roared. Decision made. I ran a full city block, butt naked, back to my house in the snow. I was outside for over 10 minutes, making snowballs, trying to hit Harry's bedroom window. Finally, the window goes up, and Harry looks down. I had not heard my brother laugh harder before or since. It also happens that Judy's basement was where I met Jeff for the first time. Whatever magic juju Judy had going on in her basement in the mid-80s, apparently Jeff and I owe our careers to it. Thanks, Judy. When I arrived, Jeff was still setting up. Judy introduced us. What up, man? I'm Jazz, he said. Prince, I said, pointing to my leg. I was thinking, this is Jazzy Jeff. He was wearing these big-ass glasses, and he didn't have his name on his clothes anywhere. How was anybody supposed to know he was Jazzy Jeff? There was a band-aid around the middle scratching finger on his left hand. Apparently, he had been scratching so much that the top knuckles of his finger had a bend in it. Everybody was raving about this dude, but I was thoroughly unimpressed. If this joker is the best DJ in the city, I'm sad for Philly. A lot of the famous DJs back in those days were flashy, doing backflips and jumping over the turntables and all that. Jeff was quiet, skinny, soft-spoken, and looked more like a science nerd than a samurai on the wheels of steel. I sat down and chilled while Jeff continued to set up. It's always good to show up early before a battle so you could clock your material. I was plotting all the punchlines. I was going to kick about his glasses and his band-aid, but I was really going to be battling Ice. A few minutes go by and I say, Yo, Jazz, where's Ice? Jeff didn't even look up. I could tell this was a sore subject. Good question. I called him like 5 times. He never hit me back. Back then, there was no cell phones. You couldn't get in touch with people like today. Judy's guests were arriving now, but there was no sign of Ready Rock. The party was starting. I could see that Judy was getting nervous, and I could sense that Jeff wasn't feeling too great. My pleaser kicked in, full steam. His pleaser, that sad Mercury, conjunct Venus and Libra. Hey, I'll rock with you till Ice gets here if you want, I said. Jeff, relieved, said, Oh, that would be dope. Thanks. I hate having to talk on the mic. I got you, I said. There's nothing I enjoy more than talking on the mic. We both laughed. Judy squealed and clapped her hands. There are rare moments as an artist that you cannot quantify or measure. As much as you try, you can rarely reproduce them, and it's near impossible to describe them. But every artist knows what I'm talking about. These moments of divine inspiration where creativity flows out of you so brilliantly and effortlessly that somehow you are better than you have ever been before. That night with Jeff was the first time I had ever tasted it, the place that athletes call the zone. It felt like we already existed as a group and we just had to catch up to ourselves, natural, comfortable home. Jeff could sense my rhyme style. He always knew what my jokes were coming, when to drop the track out so people could clearly hear the punchline, and I could tell by which hand he was using what type of scratch was coming. He preferred different scratches with his left hand than with his right. Since in this, I could draw the audience attention to which scratch was coming by which hand he was transitioning to. He was choosing the tracks and adjusting the tempos based on what he felt best accentuated the narrative structure and the flow of my rhymes. See, this is where he's being too damn detailed. This is that Mars and Virgo square and that Gemini ascendant. Like, we don't need to know all this, but he feels like it's necessary. And again, I feel like this is a way to basically, these are fillers in the book because he don't really want to, spill too much of his tea. And just as the music crescendo, but it's also him basically stroking his own ego and all this. Just as the music crescendo, I'd throw down a dagger of a line and Jeff would drop the beat into the funkiest, hottest party rocking shit these Philly kids had ever seen in their lives. That night was crazy. When the party was over, me and Jeff stood out in the driveway catching our breath and cooling off. We were still hyped. Yo, the truck Turner echoed than you did was Blaze, I said. Your flow sits perfect, locked to the cheek bass line, Jeff responded. Next time we'll use the bounce, rock, skate, roll, and then transition to chic. Word, word. Ideas poured out of us like a fire hose. Creativity ricocheting back and forth between us. Everything he said set off 3 ideas in my mind, and my responses had him holding his head and walking around in circles. We never really talked about it, never really made it official, but that wild November night in Judy Stewart's basement, he became my DJ and I became his rapper. From then on, we were DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, just 2 kids from West Philly, partners, friends, brothers, and we still are today. Over the next couple of months, me and Jeff dug in hard. We practiced. Oh, God. Oh, I can't still laugh too hard. Lord, let me just read that part again. Remember, I said y'all got to read between the lines with this book. Over the next couple of months, me and Jeff dug in hard. He puts emphasis on the word hard, y'all. That's why I say hard like that. I'm not making this shit up. We practiced every day, performed every weekend. He lived in his mother's basement. It was his sanctuary, his magic workshop. When you entered, it felt like you were getting a sneak peek behind the curtain of the wizard. Jeff was the first friend I'd ever had who, plain and simple, outworked me. I think it would be a misrepresentation to say that he practiced a lot. It wasn't that he was practicing, it was that he didn't do anything else. You never catch Jeff in the kitchen or watching TV. Let me see. He got Pisces on the 11th. Where's Neptune? Pisces on the 11th. Because the 11th house, that's going to represent Jazzy Jeff. Now, you could look at the 7th house too as representing Jazzy Jeff because of the partnership. But really, they were more so friends. So you got to look at that 11th house when we're thinking about Jazzy Jeff. And there's Pisces on the 11th. That could deal with secrets. But it can also deal with music. Let me just go backpedal. Pisces on 11 could deal with you and your friend making music together in the most benign sense. But then Pisces on the 11th can deal with some secrecy involving a friend. And then with Neptune being in Scorpio, conjoined to the moon, I'm like, what's that about? We know Scorpio is the sign of sex. Yeah, Patricia. Secret lovers. Yeah, that's what we are. All right. Where are we at? Okay. I lost my way. Hold on. Okay. So it wasn't that he was practicing, it was that he didn't do anything else. You never catch Jeff in the kitchen or watching TV. You wouldn't show up at his house and see him walking up the front steps coming back from the store. He didn't go to the store. I guess wizards don't do their own shopping. Jeff was standing in front of his turntables 14 to 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's literally the only image I can conjure of Jeff in his childhood home. Jeff was a mad scientist and he loved technology. He was always waiting for a new gadget to arrive in the mail that you could only get from some 78-year-old guitar builder of questionable history in Vienna. Jeff was moving from solely DJing into beat making and recording. He got a Tascam 4-track recorder and he was experimenting with creating his own records. He now had a mini studio. Jeff is 3 years older than me, so he had already graduated, but I had still to go and work at the Ice House. So by the time I get to rehearsal around 4 p.m., Jeff had already put in 10 hours of work. He gave me 2 tracks to write to. I'll show up the next day with one written, and he handed me 6 more tracks. This went on for the first few months of our partnership. DJ Jazzy Jeff was a hip-hop terminator. He didn't eat, he didn't sleep, and he absolutely positively would not stop until you were dead. I tried to keep up. I would stay as late as I could until my mom or daddy-o would call asking me if I knew what time it was. Those early months in Jeff's basement were among the most creative times I had ever experienced. Everything was cutting edge. Everything was hot. It was experimental and inspiring. I never wanted to leave. We were seeking our sound, but we found ourselves. One night we were rehearsing in Jeff's basement, and some random dude wearing a Lacoste polo shirt, tan khakis with a razor crease, and Adidas shell toes crawled through the basement window. He calmly went and took a seat in what he clearly thought of as his corner. The music was playing, and Jeff and I were deeply engaged in our artistic banter, so I guess he didn't want to interrupt us. Jeff didn't react to his presence at all. This went on for a few minutes until I tried to break the awkwardness that obviously only I was feeling. Hey man, you gotta watch wearing those shoes with them pants. If khakis touch shell tops, they could blow your ankles up. I was just trying to break the ice, but the dude looked at me, perceiving a challenge, and said, "Oh, is that what we doing? We bussing? Because we can't get started with those car door ears of yours." Nah, homie. I'm just messing with you. I'm Will. They call me Fresh Prince. Jeff finally popped out of his nutty professor trance and snapped his headphones off. "Oh, damn, what up, JL?" Jeff said. "When did you get here?" James Lassiter was Jeff's best friend from childhood. JL grew up 1 block over on Hazel Avenue. When Jeff was sick as a child, his mother wouldn't allow him to go off his front porch. So JL would come over and sit for hours and hours with Jeff, keeping him company. This routine continued long after Jeff's recovery and well into their adult lives. JL was a serious cat. When I met him, he was putting himself through Temple Law School. He was studying during the day and working at the University of Pennsylvania Hospital at night. He would stop at Jeff's for the last 2 hours of his day, part habit, part unwind, part front seat to the evolution of the greatest DJ who has ever lived. Our rise in the Philly hip hop scene was nuclear. We had done every show we could: block parties, school dances, proms, basement parties, birthdays, fundraisers in the church, parking lots, you name it, we did it. We had established a rep as fun, creative, captivating party rockers. Eventually, in early 1986, we scored our first real gig at a major venue, the famous Wynn Ballroom. Wynn was short for Winfield, my hood, my people with my new DJ, and we smashed it. We were the hottest hip hop duo in the Philly streets. But our big break came in September 1986 when Jeff was invited to compete in the new music seminar battle for the world supremacy. The Battle for World Supremacy was an old school DJ and MC battle competition held annually in New York City. All the legends of hip hop had performed and competed in it. Grandmaster Flash, Busy Bee, Mantronics, Melly Mel, and so on. It was like the Olympics of early 80s hip hop. Local radio DJ Lady B is an iconic pioneer at Philly hip hop. She was playing rap music before anybody in the city back when it was only on WHAT AM radio. She called Dave Funkin' Klein, who was one of the event coordinators, and told him that she had a DJ in Philly who was changing the game. Lady B pressed Funkin' Klein to put Jeff in the competition. Even though it was just 2 hours away by car, the drive felt like a pilgrimage. New York City was the mecca of hip hop. I had never been to New York. To me, the idea that music could be my passport to new worlds excited and inspired me. Here I was right now, walking through New York City, headed to the coolest event on the planet, and all because of rap music. The battle was being held in the grand ballroom of the Marriott Marquis in Times Square. We rolled up 10 deep, full swag, red Phillies baseball caps filled the room. We were intimidated and in awe, but you couldn't tell it from all the noise we were making. Philly was now officially in the building. Jeff approached the sign-in table. I was standing behind him, arms crossed, chin high, b-boy stance on swole. Melly Mel walks by to my left, entering the ballroom. My b-boy stance got just a little less swole. And then Grandmaster Flash entered right behind him. For comfort, I put my arms by my side, and then I heard a sound over my shoulder, that outburst you hear when old friends haven't seen each other for a while. I vaguely recognized one of the voices. Where do I know that voice from? And then it hit me. I had never seen him in person before, but I knew it was him. He was rocking a b-boy stance. No flashy clothes, no entourage, but the crowd still parted when he walked through. The undisputed favorite for the MC competition, Grandmaster Cass. As he passed, it took everything I had not to squeal, I love you, Cass. Fortunately, he passed quickly, and I didn't play myself, but I'm not sure how much longer I could have held out. Jeff finished signing in. I put my hands in my pockets and went quietly to find a seat. As I was saying, we have to read between the lines. There were two sections of the battle for world supremacy, the MC competition and the DJ competition. 8 competitors in each, 3 elimination rounds. Last man standing wins. The battle was set up so that each competitor had 3 30-second slots in each round to do their thing. They would go back and forth with their routines, and at the end, the judges would score them partially based on their techniques and overall performance, but also on the reaction of the crowd. The MCs were first, and it wasn't even a fair fight. Round after round, rapper after rapper fell to the wit and charisma of my idol. Grandmaster Cass was crowned the world supreme MC, and I could hold out no longer. I love you, Cass. The DJs were up next. Back in the day, this was the battle people really came to see. As the newcomer in the first round, Jeff was paired against DJ Cheese, the previous year's champion. Most DJs had worked out 2 or 4 routines and repeated them throughout the competition, but Jeff had spent the previous week preparing 9 separate 30-second routines. He realized that if there were 3 rounds, each round having 3 slots, that he would be able to go through the whole tournament without ever repeating a single routine. But he took it even further. Each routine was timely perfected to end in 30 seconds. So whereas other DJs were looking sloppy, getting cut off by the buzzer, or they had a 20-second intro and never really got into the routine, Jeff perfectly timed routines had punchlines right at the 29 seconds. The effect was that Jeff's buzzer became a signal to the crowd to erupt. The first round is set to begin. Jeff walks across the stage, maybe a little overeager, just a bit too happy to be there, and extends a hand of greeting to DJ Cheese. Cheese looks Jeff up and down and flags him, refuses to shake his hand. As Jeff returns to his DJ setup, His cheerful demeanor is gone and his eyes have turned icy. If Cheese would have known what was coming, he would have just shaken Jeff's hand, or better yet, tried to break it off. Cheese was up first. He came out strong, but Jeff fired back with one of Philly's favorites, a tricky rhythm scratch. People were looking at one another and murmuring, not quite sure what they had just seen. DJ Cheese is eyeballing Jeff, sensing that this is just the beginning. Nobody had ever seen cutting like this. The crowd was inching up on the edges of their seats. DJ Cheese unleashed his second routine and once again nailed it. The crowd cheers, big scores from all the judges. Then the audience settles down to see what other artillery the Philly Kid has brought with him. And with no announcement and no fanfare, Jeff introduces the world to his Transformer scratch. In 1986, that was the illest thing anybody had ever heard. And that was just the first 10 seconds. He finishes the routine slicing Pump Me Up by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. There's a verse at the end of the song that goes, "I'm the bow-legged brother, there'll never be another. I bought a mansion for my mother." Jeff did a breakdown, cutting the last line into syllables. "And I bought a mansion for my..." And then he held it, letting the clock run out. And at 29 seconds, right before the buzzer, he released the last word, "mother." The buzzer sounded and the crowd lost it. Judges were jumping up out of their seats and walking around with the hands on their heads. Jeff's scratches were so clean, sharp, and calculated that people realized they were witnessing the evolution of the art form. DJ Jazzy Jeff was now serving notice that the road to world supremacy rolled through Philly. Jeff was flawless that night. And when it was all said and done, the 1986 World Supreme DJ was a kid who spent most of his life in a basement in Southwest Philly. My DJ Jazzy Jeff. Afterward, we all piled into our single room at the Marriott Marquis. We knew something big had happened. Eric B. and Rakim even came to the room to personally congratulate Jeff. We weren't quite sure where this was all going, but we had the sense that some important fuse had just been lit. We stayed up all night laughing, dreaming, plotting, planning. That night was the first night I realized that the possibilities of hip-hop presented me far outstretched anything else I had dared hope for. My whole life, my parents' hopes for me had been predicated on education and hard work. I was supposed to go to college. I was supposed to get a job. I was supposed to move up in the world. And as the self-designated golden child, I had always committed to living up to my parents' hopes and dreams. I couldn't imagine otherwise. But by the time we drove home the next morning, New York disappearing behind us, I was struck with the overwhelming conviction, I am not going to college. This chapter just goes on and on and on. Wait a minute, let me see when this is over. Oh, wait a minute. That's still quite a few pages. God damn. What time is it? I might read a couple of more pages and then we're going to do chapter 5, part 2. But this, again, like I said, he's too detailed and in the wrong type of way. Like, he's providing details that are not even necessary. And it's starting to get me to lose interest. So if he doesn't come with some hot shit quick, I might not even finish chapter 5. But y'all do see how he, in my opinion, he dropped some clues in there about what he's really like. I love you, Cass. Like, come on, what is that? And the way he even said he squealed with it. All right, let me just read on. Dana Goodman had cash. He was about 5'6" and heavyset, not fat, but thick in a way that he could hurt you if he had to. Approaching 40, he was a Winfield old head. When you would see him standing on the corner, it was only briefly because he was above those fools. He was doing real shit. Dana was the little brother of Lawrence Goodman, founder of Pop Art Records, one of the first New York-based hip-hop labels. Lawrence was from Philly, but he was killing them in New York City. Those first few months back in Philly, me and Jeff were on fire. Jeff was now spending 80% of his time making records and 20% DJing. We had finished 6 or 7 songs on Jeff's Tascam 4-track. He had mixed them as best as he could, but Jeff was becoming increasingly frustrated that his equipment couldn't quite reproduce sounds that were trapped in his head. I had recently purchased a Sharp 777, the original hip hop boombox. It was one of the first times I noticed a major corporation responding to the demands of our burgeoning art form. The 777 was a loud ass, heavy ass radio. You had to be strong to carry that thing around, and you had to carry it because for some reason, if you sat it on the ground, it drained your expensive 10D batteries way faster. Best of all, the 777 had dual high-speed cassette replication capabilities. So I would take the cassettes that me and Jeff had made at home, and I would stay up all night high-speed dubbing our demos. This was the old days where you had to do one tape at a time. It was dull and monotonous. You know, like building a brick wall when you're fucking 9. But it needed to be done, so I did it. I then handed those tapes out to everybody. I didn't care if you even knew what hip hop was. If you got 2 ears and a tape deck, then my name's the Fresh Prince. It says it right here on my pants. And I've got a tape you gotta hear. Overbrook High School was situated in Hilltop, and Hilltop was run by about 30 dudes who called themselves the Hilltop Hustlers. One of the top rappers in that crew was Steady B. Instead was Lawrence Goodman's nephew. The word on the street was that his uncle had just given him a deal and he had music coming out later that year. I wanted Stead to get my tape to Lawrence. The problem was I was from across the bridge in Winfield, and if there was one thing that a Hilltop hustler would never do, is to help a nigga from Winfield. But then it hit me. Dana Goodman lives in Winfield. Maybe he'll pass our tape to Lawrence. Dana and Lawrence, like many brothers, had a bit of a sibling rivalry going on. Dana saw the money his brother was making with his record label, and he hoped to start a label of his own. He called me and Jeff and said he wanted to meet, so we invited him over to Jeff's to hear us perform. Dana was wearing a dark blue velour Sergio Tacchini sweatsuit, the one with the red and white elasticated wrist and ankle. See, this is where he's being too fucking detailed. We don't need to know all this, Will. The sweatsuit was zipped up, but obviously all of this was important to him back then. Very much into fashion. That is a Libra trait. So, and he has that moon conjoined to Neptune. So it makes sense that he was, very concerned about what people were wearing. But we don't need to be, knowing about all these details, inconsequential, unnecessary details. The sweatsuit was zipped open just enough to reveal his 7 or 8 slim gold chains bouncing off the afro on his chest. Okay, what? You see what I'm saying? But again, you got to read between the lines. He's looking at dude's bare chest. Why are you all focused on dude? Let me just read this again. We're getting inside the mind of Will Smith, and it's dark. Let me just read this again. Dana was wearing a dark blue velour Sergio Tacchini sweatsuit, the one with the red and white elasticated wrist and ankle bands. The sweatsuit was zipped open just low enough to reveal his 7 or 8 slim gold chains bouncing off the afro on his chest. He was that older dude who almost got away with dressing like the kids, except he had dress socks on. Dana always wore sunglasses, indoors, outdoors, noon, midnight, basketball court, church. You never caught Dana not rocking his shades. That day, Dana pulled up in front of Jeff's house in a brand new 4-door, still blue Audi 4000 CS Quattro 5-speed. And for the first time in my life, I saw a phone in a car. It was the first car phone ever. It was a rotary dial house phone that somehow worked in his car. Dana stepped out on Rodman Street. He was a boss. He was loud. He was a showman. And the sun was banging off his pinky ring. Me and Jeff were standing on his mom's porch. Dana saw us, threw his arms wide open, and in his low weather baritone voice, yelled out to the kids playing and the neighbors passing, "Yo, there they go," pointing to me and Jeff. "That's them, y'all. Y'all better get their autographs now. That's DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Them boys about to do something. He called me and Jeff down. Come here, y'all. Give me some love. Me and Jeff stepped down to the sidewalk and Dana hugged us like a proud father. Love what y'all did up in New York, holding it down for Philly. Me and Jeff smiled. Well, you know that's what we do, I said. Just then, one of Jeff's neighbors, a dude a few years older named Keith, called out, "Aye, Dana. That you, man? Oh, shit. It's Dana Goodman. What you summon, man?" Keith and Dana shook hands. One of those long, elaborate handshakes with multiple steps from a previous generation, which also didn't go with Dana's sweatsuit. What brings you round these parts? Keith asked. Oh, you know, I'm here to talk to these boys about a little business, Dana said. Business? Keith looked at me and Jeff. His energy shifted slightly, but our youth and our excitement blinded us to the subtleties. Keith pulled Dana aside, put his arm around him. You know, this is Jimmy Towns' little brother, right? Dana looked over at Jeff. Jimmy Towns' brother? Keith got up real close to Dana and whispered something in his ear that we couldn't hear. Dana looked down, then started nodding. Yeah, I got you. This just business. I'm trying to help them. Family, Keith said, loud enough for us to hear this time. He then said his goodbyes and went back down the street. Dana came down to the basement. Me and Jeff let him hear everything we had. Dana picked the two songs he liked the most. The first was called Just One of Those Days. Just One of Those Days features a slow 92 beats per minute groove where I rapped about having one of those days where everything goes wrong. For the chorus, Jeff sampled Irving Berlin's Putting on the Ritz, a 1928 ragtime joint that was the first song ever performed in a film by an interracial ensemble. It was pure Jazzy Jeff mixing old-time, highbrow music with the scratches and rhythms of hip-hop. It crystallized our musical dynamic. Jeff's musical sophistication and in-depth knowledge married to my natural storytelling and humor. The second song was Girls Ain't Nothing But Trouble, the one inspired by Grandmaster Caz Yvette. This time, Jeff sampled the theme song from the famous 1960s sitcom I Dream of Jeannie. He used the brand new Roland 909 drum machine, and he detuned the toms to make them sound like a bass line. I told the story of the night in Judy Stewart's basement when my exquisite lovemaking almost got me frostbitten. Dana loved it. He was cracking up. Yo, did that really happen? Tell the truth. Did that happen for real? Yeah, man, I said. That was a rough night. He burst out laughing. Boy, y'all some talented, funny niggas, he said. Hip-hop has evolved so much over the decades that listening to those songs now I cringe. They sound so simplistic and repetitive. But back then, what we were doing was revolutionary. Jeff and I played with the structure of songs in a way that no one else in hip-hop had up until that point. We had lyricless choruses. We had verses that were half samples, half raps. I was building verses that constructed a full story, each verse leading into the next, begging the listener to finish the song to find out what happened by the end. It was a new day, dare I say. It was fresh. Dana was bobbing his head to the beat, clapping his hands, stomping, and then finally playing as he couldn't take it anymore. He said, that's enough, turn it off. Jeff hit the stop button on the 4-track. If we had been in a cartoon, Dana would have been spinning dollar signs in his eyes, but in real life, he thumbed the gold chains on his chest and said, oh man, what y'all say we make a record? Me and Jeff snapped. We were hyped, jumping, high-fiving, yelling. We were so naive, we thought that was it. You just invite a guy to your house and he says, let's make a record, and boom, you're a star. We didn't realize that Dana didn't even have a company yet. He had no distribution, very few connections in radio or television, and DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince were his first foray into the music business. A week later, we walked into Studio 4, a professional recording studio that Dana found in downtown Philly. It's hard to describe what Jeff's face looked like when he entered the main control room. It was as if he was a 17-year-old virgin walking onto the set of a porno movie and finding out that he was the star. Dana presented us with the recording contract and we signed it. We had never been in a real recording studio before, so we weren't really sure what to do or how it worked. Dana had at least been in with his brother on many of the pop art hits. He had ideas of how it should be and what he wanted to hear. The contract dictated that Dana was the producer and co-songwriter of our music. He started telling Jeff to change tempos, to shift pitches, to add cuts and adjust sounds. Jeff disagreed with many of Dana's creative choices, but in Dana's mind, since he paid for the studio time, he was in charge. Jeff was fuming, but since he paid for the studio time, he was in charge. My bad. Jeff was fuming, but this was our big shot, our one chance, so we didn't want to mess it up. Just one of those days got mangled in the recording session. The tempos between the verse and chorus were different. The song inexplicably changed keys. The mix was awful. Jeff still hates that track, even though we re-recorded it later. But Girls got through the recording sessions mostly unscathed and still held up as a song. Despite Jeff's grumbling, it was decided that Girls would be our first release as a single, and just one of those days would be the B-side. We released them to build up some hype while we recorded our first full album. The Girls Ain't Nothing But Trouble single came out in March 1986, although nobody knew it because it was on Dana's new record label, Word Up Records. No offices, no employees, no distribution. The single wasn't even in stores. Dana was selling the vinyl out of the trunk of his car. Nothing was happening. To his credit, he was doing everything he knew how to do. He was a hustler. He spent his own money, and he absolutely believed in DJ Jazzy, Jeff, and the Fresh Prince. Even though nobody knew we had a record out, Jeff's win at the battle for world supremacy meant that promoters started calling to put him on shows. And I came as part of the package deal. We started hitting the nicer clubs around Philly. We played Delaware and Atlantic City. The shows were getting big enough that they were contracts. And on one occasion, we needed to sign and fax one back by 5 p.m. the same day or we'd lose the gig. Jeff and I were scrambling. Who the hell do we know with a fax machine? JL was sitting in JL's corner of Jeff's basement in his own world, reading the back of an Ohio Players album cover, the one with the naked girl on the inside with the honey all over her. Jeff and I were getting more and more frantic, trying to prevent this $1,500 from evaporating as 5 p.m. approached. Neither of us had a fax machine. I figured my mom might have access to one at work, but it was already laid out on Friday. Daddy-O didn't like that newfangled shit. And Word Up Records only had a rotary dial car phone in its mobile business office. JL sat there quietly as Jeff and I became aggravated with each other. You got all of this computer shit down here, but you don't have a damn fax machine, I said. You could get a sampling guitar pedal from a Nazi in Vienna, and you don't have no way of faxing a damn contract? How is it my job? What do you do in the group? JL never looked up, and in a bored monotone voice, he said, as much to the Ohio Players girl as to me and Jeff, I have a fax machine, and that's how James Lassiter became our manager. I might have to stop right here because I'm like, again, this is just going on and on, too detailed. We don't need to know all this extra stuff. I have about 4 or 5 pages left, and I can't even get through it. I'm going to have to do a part 2 of chapter 5 because this is, it's just too much. Let me see what some of y'all are saying before I go. Ellie said Jada made August eat. Oh my God, you heard I kicked him out of the room. See, y'all weren't even listening. Y'all just having your own conversation. I don't blame y'all though, because this shit was dry as shit. Conservative Free Spirit said, like most new age side chicks. See, y'all talk about August. I don't blame y'all, because this shit was not an easy read. Lissy said he knew people were going to question that last statement. I can't believe the editor approved these past 2 chapters, chapter 4 and chapter 5, because I'm just like, he could have fused them together with the most pertinent details. Cameron said, begging the listener to listen to the end to find out what happens. Old habits die hard, Will. Right? Exactly. Indigo said, let's make a record. Let's hunt, right? I might just finish the rest. Maybe I could get through it. Because I don't like to leave things unfinished. But god damn, he is just too detailed. And again, the details that don't matter. Indigo said, I think it's a good light. You think he's a good light, but then he wants to sit up and talk all damn night. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is a hard read. I told y'all. Asked Mahogany, said, yeah, I need a nap now, right? I'm just like, wait, hold on. Lissy said the details that give him away, right? But I feel like it's strategic on his part. You know how Libra could be strategic. But yeah, it's a bit much. It is a bit much. So let me just see if I could get through the rest of this. Because I got a bit more time. But I just need a little break. Like, Jesus. All right. There's a great concept from Jim Rohn. Look at the 5 people you spend the most time with because that's who you are. This is an idea I've always understood innately. Deep down inside, I knew that my dreams would be made or broken by the people I chose to surround myself with. Confucius had it right. It's nearly impossible for the quality of your life to be higher than the quality of your friends. And by the grace of God, there has never been a single moment in my life where I have looked to my left or to my right and not seen an extraordinary friend, someone who believed in me and was down for whatever. Down for whatever. JL was in his final year of law school, and while it may have been a casual act of convenience for Jeff and me to hire him as our manager, we quickly realized that JL was not a casual kind of guy. He started making contact with all of our venues and concert promoters and began requesting documentation and financial information about record sales and studio costs from Dana. And when he wasn't satisfied with the responses, he hired a New York City attorney to overcome all of our business dealings. JL was one of those guys who didn't care about fame or money. He wasn't flashy, and he didn't want fancy clothes or sparkly jewels. He prided himself simply on defending the people he loved. JL read the recording contract we had signed with Dana. He had highlighted and circled and X'd out clauses, which didn't really matter because we had already signed it. Perched in JL's corner with a perplexed look on his face, he asked, "Did you two read this contract?" Jeff and I kind of glanced at each other. "I didn't read it, did you?" I said. Jeff shook his head, and then to JL said, "Nah, what does it say?" That was not the answer JL was hoping for. "It says that y'all are stupid." Dana was always upbeat, telling us how hard he was working and how much money he was spending to promote the record. Jeff had heard it a couple of times on what around midnight, and a few friends and family members had caught it, but it was getting spotty airplay at best. You gotta bribe radio stations, you gotta wine and dine people. You know, it's competitive. They be trying to jaw me up. They playing it though. Y'all just not catching it. Just give me some time, y'all gonna be huge. Since I had secretly decided that I wasn't going to college, I stopped doing my homework. I didn't study for tests, and I didn't even show up for a lot of my classes. As far as Daddy was concerned, if I was disciplined at the ice house, performed my tasks impeccably, and wasn't getting myself arrested or killed, he was cool. But my mom was friends with all of my teachers at Overbrook, and she snapped. My mom's super most parenting mission was for me and for all her children to go to college. For her, college was everything. It was what she had picked up and moved to Philly for. It was why she tolerated Daddy-O's drinking and violence. It was a big part of why she moved back to Woodcrest. To her, a college education was the fundamental bedrock of a successful life, and without it, I was doomed. Hope sustains life. Hope is the elixir of survival during our darkest times. The ability to envision and imagine a brighter day gives meaning to our suffering and renders it bearable. When we lose hope, we lose our central source of strength and resilience. My mother's hope for her kids has sustained her through the darkest years of her marriage. But now I had developed hopes of my own. I had hip hop hopes. I had hopes for albums And being on stage in front of 50,000 people shouting, "Oh," when I told them to, these hopes were now empowering and sustaining me. I would have died if I had to give them up. I couldn't. I wouldn't. It came to a head one afternoon toward the end of my senior year. I hadn't come home after school. I had gone straight to Jeff's to rehearse. It was about 10 p.m. when I finally made it home. I could feel my mom before I even put my key in the front door. Sure enough, my mom was in the kitchen waiting for me. "Hey, Mom," I said mock joyfully. "Are you having a problem?" she said evenly. "Nah, I'm good, Mom." "No, apparently you're having a big problem, or at least you're about to." "What's up, Mom? What happened?" "I just talked to Mrs. Stubbs. After 4 years, you've forgotten where your classrooms are?" "No, Mom. I'm just doing a lot of stuff." "What are you doing that's more important than getting into college? You know these schools are going to look at your final senior grades. We have come too far for you to throw your life away now. What is your problem?" My mom's voice and her posture denoted anger, but I saw something else beneath that. She was terrified. My heart melted. "Mom, I've been working with Jeff for almost a year. People say he is the best DJ in the world. Rap is blowing up. It's on the radio. It's on MTV. And Run DMC went to Japan. I'm telling you, Mom, we are making songs that are as good as what anybody else is doing. Every time we perform, people go crazy. We found a record producer who's putting up money. We have a manager. Nobody in Philly can rap as good as me. Everybody says we're going to be stars. I just need some time to make it happen." "No, you can't be a rapper," she said bluntly. "What? Why not?" "Because I don't know what that is. You listen to me right now. You will not cut another class. You will not miss another test. You will complete every single piece of homework that is assigned to you. You are going to college in the fall, period." "Mom, just listen to the music." "I've been hearing you hippity hopping around here your whole life. This is a hobby. That is not a career. Good night." She stood up from the kitchen table, turned to walk away, and I stopped her with probably the worst thing I have ever said to my mother. "Mom, I'm not going to college." I was here on the backs of generations who had struggled through hardship and sacrifice, the blessed recipient of a long lineage of striving African Americans to have a stable, educated, middle class life in America. My mom and daddy-o's generation grew up in the throes of segregation and immense poverty. Gigi's family had escaped the Jim Crow South. My mother had fought through decades of school district bureaucracies, financial uncertainty, and daddy-o's bullshit to get me to this point. And she was going to be damned if I didn't go to college because of some music I was doing at basement parties with homeboys named Jazz and Ready Rock. Our hopes had finally collided, and these hopes were inherently incompatible with each other. One had to give way. One of us was going to have our heart broken. The thing I've learned over the years about advice is that no one can accurately predict the future, but we all think we can. So, advice at its best is one person's limited perspective of the infinite possibilities before you. People's advice is based on their fears, their experiences, their prejudices, and at the end of the day, their advice is just that. It's theirs, not yours. When people give you advice, they're basing it on what they would do, what they can perceive, and what they think you can do. But the bottom line is, while yes, it is true we are all subject to a series of universal laws, patterns, tides, and currents, all of which are somewhat predictable, you are the first. Oh my God. See, I'm losing my momentum. This nigga, oh my God. He's so. Oh my God. I'm thinking that I'm close to the end of this chapter. I'm not. Let me just finish reading until I get to this next paragraph. Oh, here he go just preaching. I'm just like, oh my God. All right. But the bottom line is, while yes, it is true that we are all subject to a series of universal laws, patterns, tides, and currents, all of which are somewhat predictable, you are the first time you've ever experienced. What? You and now are a unique occurrence of which you are the most reliable measure of all the possibilities. I've always loved the scene in The Pursuit of Happiness on the basketball court in which Jaden's character shoots the ball and yells, "I'm going pro." My character, Chris Gardner, discourages him from pursuing basketball but catches himself. Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something, not even me. You got to dream, you got to protect it. People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you you can't do it. If you want something, go get it, period. My mother's college education saved her life, which solidified for her a fundamental premise. A college education is the only armor against the brutality of this world. And without a college education, I would be condemned to a certain destruction. This was not her advice to me. This was the truth. To her, being a rapper was impossible. But I am not my mother. Just as her education saved and defended her from the hardships of her early life, performance and hip hop has saved me from mine. It's clearer when I look back now. While we were gridlocked and colliding and arguing, the reality was both things were true. One was true for her and the other was true for me. But at that time, neither of us could compromise because it would mean destroying everything we stood for. I can't even finish this chapter. It's kind of like torture. Damn. So I will continue reading that chapter. Well, I might read it on my own and then determine if it's even worth reading out loud. I might just skip to chapter 6 because he's bullshitting at this point. He's like really trying to like, I don't know what he's getting at of like providing all this extra shit, right? Yeah, I'm like he got me tired. I'd rather work on my written work at this point. I'm just like, wow, Will. Yeah. So you said don't throw the book. Yeah, I'm trying to hold on, Indigo. I really am, but it's hard. It is hard. Like this, he's really making you work for the juicy stuff. You know what I mean? That is very much that Mars and Virgo again, squaring that Gemini ascendant. Dude, you too much with the details that don't mean a damn. But again, he thinks he's like more important than what he is. So I'm not surprised that he wants to share all these non-essential details with us, thinking that we're gonna really be interested in that type of shit. But yeah, I'm just like, I can't. So I'll be back before I do part or chapter 6. I'll probably do a live stream for Pisces season, or first I'll probably do Mars and Capricorn. I have a really good example of Mars and Capricorn, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, I'm worn out after reading that shit, and I told you I needed y'all support, so thank y'all. But yeah, so hope you enjoyed that. It was a rough one. Wasn't easy to get through. Hopefully chapter 6 will be much more interesting. But I don't know. At this point, I'm really starting to lose faith because chapter 4 was hard to get through. Chapter 5 was even harder. I just hope I hope chapter 6 he's going into the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air at that point, because I'm just like, damn, this book could have been half of the size that it is. I'll just say that. Because he could have totally left chapter 4 and 5 out. But he did put some little gems up in both of those chapters where, again, if you read between the lines, you'll be able to see what's really going on. But yeah, thanks for joining me for this live stream. I'll be back with some more videos. Peace.